Zenu, how are you? Hope you're good. Welcome. Oh, wrong CD. Can't play that because YouTube will flag it. Hold on here. Let's get it right. Let's get it right. If we're going to do it right, let's do it right. Where is it? Here it is. It's like working at a radio station. Okay. We're almost on the air. We're on the air. We're on the air. Welcome to Wog World, where you can hear stories about a fucked up cult called Scientology. With your host, me, Marcus Lee Sawyer. Rover Dover asked a really good question about cults after I posted the interiorization rundown video, and I wanted to answer it as quickly as possible because if this person, Rover Dover, male, female, not sure, is encountering cult activity in their area, I don't want to keep you waiting for the information. But the thing is, the question you asked is a very dangerous question for me to answer, and I'll tell you why. Because my experience is with cults is strictly limited to Scientology and Catholicism. So here's the deal. Check out Steve Hassan's website. It is called freedomofmind.org. And look, if you can, print out some of his material. He's got a piece of paper, real short, called the BITE model. And it stands for Behavior, Information, Thought, and Emotional Control. And you should read that before you even consider doing anything. And you can also look at some of my past videos where I cover, I think, the first three: behavior, information, thought. And maybe I got to the final video. If I didn't, I need to do that. I tried covering as much of the Steve Hassan stuff as I could because he did great work as an ex-cult member turned psychiatrist. He still does great work. I admire him a lot. And when you read that piece of paper, behavior control, information control, thought control, emotional control, start to observe. Again, this is very, very dangerous stuff that you could be dealing with, because I don't know what kind of Korean cults are out there. They could be cults that would kill you if you tried to save someone. Murder, killing in the name of, type stuff. There are cults that lock children up in basements and beat them and don't feed them and mistreat them. Like that white boy rhyme? Focus camera. All right. So it's you got to be very careful. I mean, you need to know more information about the cult, because I don't. If you know what kind of cult it is, if it's a Christian-based cult or if it's a sex cult, money cult, drug trafficking cult, it's just a straight-up drug cult, whatever kind of cult, there's going to be somebody looking after that person that's approaching you, making sure that they stay in the cult. That could be a friend, that could be a family member if the family's involved. And you're asking me, what is it that you could do or say to get the person to start thinking on their own? Well, I have no real good answer to that. It just depends on the person's level of indoctrination into the cult. If they're a new member, it might not take much. But if they, but that doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily true for all people, because it could be a new member that's gung ho. This could be a person that the cult saved their life, and so they're dedicating their life to it. So aside from looking at Steve Hassan's bite model, observation would be something that if I was concerned about an individual in a cult, that I would make an effort to do, but a very discreet effort, discreet observation, because you sure as hell don't want to be on their radar, and be targeted, or have worse yet, have your family targeted. Scientology is not, they're litigious. They're if you've not spoken ill about them, they're very forgiving and want you back, and will try to make you feel good, and make you feel like you're going to make some headway on your case, and get more money out of you. But and in the case of my brother, years later they came over to his house, but remember, he had never really spoken any ill. He hadn't gone out on YouTube and published anything. And the worst I could see these days with Scientology is a hate website of some kind. But you want to protect yourself against other forms of retaliation. If you're trying to get someone out of a cult, there will be some form of retaliation, some form. Whether it's disconnecting from people. I haven't talked to Monica in years, and I truly do care for her. I care about John. I care about Dominic. I care about Eve, his wife. I care about Natasha and Dexter and all these people. I care for their freaking mind. Like, these people have done shitty things, and I've done shitty things too, but I care for them in a way that isn't like, hey, I want to be your best friend, but it's like, hey, it sure sucks you're in a cult. I wish you could get out, and maybe we could chat every now and then, kind of thing. So, observation. Well, first, Steve Hassan, observation, discreet. And as far as saying anything, if they come up to you, I got to be really careful what I'm telling you here, because I don't know a damn thing about these cults you're talking about, these Korean cults. If you could link me some information, that would be helpful. But other than that, I'd refer you to Steve Hassan. He's the expert, and he truly is. But that's the information that my biological father ultimately ended on, was Steve Hassan, and what he describes like a soft exit for someone in a cult is to give them a reminder, if they had a passion before the cult, if they had an interest, no matter what it is, a job, a girlfriend, a car, a house, a healthy life, whatever, anything positive that was part of their life before the cult that they enjoyed, that cooking, whatever it is, ask them about what they do for themselves. Try to get them thinking about themselves, because generally when you're out proselytizing a cult, you're looking at the world as if it's doomed. And you are the only one, or you are one of the few that's trying to save it. And so you're on a pretty high horse, and ain't nobody going to knock you down off of it, because you may not think this, but when that person walks up to you, no matter how destitute or horrible he or she looks, they're looking at you with empathy and sorrow and sadness, because you have not seen the truth that they see. So you cannot derail them or get their train of thought off of that mindset that they're on if they're out there doing that actively, because that is a state of mind that is almost required to be out there on the streets proselytizing. So what my biological father tried to do, was to pique interests that I had before the cult. In other words, to sort of try to pull the individual that was there before the cult to try to surface it, to get it to a surface. Now, that could take a long time. It could take a couple of days. It just depends on the person. And it depends on how attached to the cult that they are. But that was the method that my biological father was using. And had it been someone else, a different person, even a stranger, I may have taken that to heart. In fact, Chris Prock was a public from Melrose, who really did get me thinking like that. He was like, "What about the music, dude? You're a fucking amazing guitarist. Like, you're in LA. Like, what the fuck are you doing?" He's like, "I get it. Like, there's some cool stuff." He did a few courses. He did a few things that helped him, and then he was done, and that was it. And we kept trying to reg him and get him back on lines, and eventually, it was me and him. I remember he was one of my products, and or maybe me and Travis routed him in, but it was a musician. So, and he kicks ass. He's in a cover band called the ACGBs, and they cover all AC/DC stuff. He's a hell of a guitar player. He plays all the Malcolm Young stuff. But I remember on Melrose Avenue the day that he told me goodbye, because it was over. That was it. It was like, man, I don't understand why you don't do your music. And that's why I'm leaving. So that was a pretty heavy moment, and it came up in auditing. His name came up in auditing and sec checks and handlings and ethics, and then you have to do exchange by dynamics and all this other bullshit cult stuff to get you back on track. So what I'm saying is that even trying to get someone's raw self back bubbling to the surface to where they have enough cognitive dissonance to say, finally, fuck this, I'm out. There are a lot of ways that the cult can counter that. So, and then there is the danger in your situation where you might not know what lengths that cult will go to protect their members. Imagine the amount of money that Scientology brings in if they were not a tax-exempt organization, and the amount of money they bring in. Like, take Scientology in the 70s or the 60s even. And in the case of Hannah Eltringham, right? The unbreakable Miss Lovely, who was spied on, threatened, by dudes in big black cars, and staying like stakeouts, threatening, menacing, fucking crazy people. You don't know if they're gonna kill you, if they're gonna kidnap you. That was Scientology. That was the Guardian's office before it had a tax-exempt status. They were nothing more than thugs. And whenever Jeff Hawkins in my Scientology movie by Louis Theroux says Marty knows where the bodies are buried, I'm not so sure he's joking. I'm serious. Because back then, before the tax-exempt status, that's a criminal organization. It's still a criminal organization. It's just tax-exempt now. And in a lot of ways, it's allowed them to go legit. They're legit. They're legit religion. They don't pay taxes. So what I'm saying is that an organization that is not tax-exempt or not recognized by a government is a criminal organization. Essentially, they're a cult, and they are taking money and resources and people and children and women and stuff and trafficking them, which most of the time they are. It's a dangerous situation to get yourself involved in. I wouldn't recommend it. If you find yourself wanting to help, and it's a non-recognized cult, then, contact your local authorities, make reports, make harassment reports, report if they're scant, like if they're poor, if they're in raggedy clothes, report that to the authorities. Report it to the authorities. Don't get yourself mixed up in some crazy thing you don't know how deep it goes. Scientology these days, I don't see it, if it is, it's on a scale that's beyond imagination. Like, it would have to be some, like, crazy, no one will ever find you, no one will ever know what happened to you kind of thing. Or, like, make it look like an accident. That's my thoughts on that. And I highly recommend you go check out Steve Hassan's material. And any links to other research that he has on his site, because he does have links to other cult researchers. Carol, can't remember her last name. She wrote a really great intervention handbook. But interventions, I hate to say it, in my time in the cult, they're rarely successful. In fact, in Scientology, it drives that wedge further. It just drives it in deep. And until one of the parties cracks because of the disconnection, it's permanent. So I hope I answered your question. It's a big old nasty can of worms, and it sucks to see people in that position. There were a lot of business owners on Melrose that saw my brother and I and others on the Melrose staff the same way, and no effect on target. So report it to the authorities. Don't take any risks. We like that you're in the WOG world. Everything happens for a reason. You can believe that or not. See you later.